Hi everyone, and welcome to Healthy Bites. Healthy Bites is a collaboration between Nevada County Public Health and Nevada County Media. My name is Shauna Schultz and I will be your host. I am a registered dietitian and nutrition educator with the CalFresh Healthy Living program, and I'm very excited to be able to share with you healthy and tasty recipes that are affordable and family friendly. This month we are focusing on fun ways to eat the rainbow. A meal that is centered around fruits and vegetables promotes health, from heart health to brain health to a healthy immune system, and much, much more. Today in this episode, we will be making a spaghetti squash with a cilantro pesto. So let's go ahead and get started. I first wanted to show you what a spaghetti squash is in case you're not familiar with spaghetti squashes. So I'm going to put it back together since I've already cooked it, but this is what it looks like whole. It is a winter squash, typically harvested in the fall, but usually they're available year-round in the grocery store. It's named spaghetti squash because when you cook the squash, the flesh inside, when you scoop it out, comes out in a strand-like fashion that more or less looks like spaghetti. So oftentimes it's used in place of regular spaghetti noodles. So I've already cooked this spaghetti squash, and what I did was I just baked it. So you slice it in half lengthwise, and then put it face down on a baking sheet or in a baking dish. And it's a good idea to put a little bit of water on that, just a little bit of water on the bottom of the baking dish or the baking tray, just because it'll help steam the squash a little bit. So you put it face down, and make sure before you do that you scoop out the seeds that are in the middle. And then you bake it at 350 or 375 until you can easily pierce the flesh with a knife or a fork. So it probably takes about anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. Now, when you're cutting the spaghetti squash, make sure that you use a really sharp knife. If you don't have really sharp knives or it just seems a little too tough, a little trick that you can do is you can put the squash when it's whole in the microwave. Just make sure that you prick the skin a few times so that it can release steam. So maybe about 3 minutes, and then it's a lot easier to cut through that squash. So just a little tip. So this one is all baked and it's ready to go. So before we make the pesto, what I'm going to do is just scoop out the flesh, and you'll be able to see that it looks a lot like spaghetti noodles when it comes out. All right, so I've got a bowl here. You can just use a fork to get the strands out. They come out pretty easily, and you just run the fork from top to bottom, and we scoop out the flesh. All right. And this is also a fun activity for kids. They really, really enjoy scooping out the flesh of the spaghetti squash. I actually served this recipe to a whole grade of, I think they were 5th graders, and everybody loved this recipe. So it might seem kind of wild that kids would love cilantro pesto, but you'd be surprised at what they enjoy. Now, what's nice about using spaghetti squash in place of regular noodles is that it's just a different way to sneak in more veggies, and you can mix it with many different things from savory to sweet, and people tend to really, really like it. Spaghetti squash is a good source of fiber. You can see that it's yellow in color, so it's a good source of vitamin A. It's got some vitamin C, some B vitamins, so very, very nutritious. And I think most importantly, it's really fun. to use. Spaghetti squash, like all winter squashes, also keeps for a really long time if you store it in a nice cool place. Winter squashes are named winter squash because they were designed to be stored through the winter in pantries. All right. And this is a medium-sized squash, and we got a good amount, probably at least 3 cups of flesh that we scooped out of here. All right, so that's all scooped out. Here's our finished product here. You can see they're kind of strand-like. And I'm going to set this aside and we're going to get started on the pesto. So most people are probably familiar with basil pesto, but you can use almost any herb in a pesto with almost any kind of nut or seed, and it's most likely going to taste really, really good. One of my favorite alternative herbs in place of basil to use is cilantro. Just really, really tasty. So what we'll be putting into the pesto is cilantro. For our seed, we'll be using pepitas, which are pumpkin seeds. Of course, we'll put some garlic in there, and we're going to put some lime juice in there just to brighten it up. Lime goes really well flavor-wise with cilantro. A little bit of salt, a little bit of olive oil, and then also a little bit of water, just in case we need to thin it out a little bit. So you can use a food processor. You can also use a blender. Either would be fine. I'm going to start by blending the garlic and the lime juice and the pumpkin seeds together. And then we'll go ahead and add in the oil and a little bit of water and the cilantro, and we'll be good to go. So I have about a half a cup here of the pepitas. Got one little runaway there. We're going to just put in 1 garlic clove. Smash it just to get that skin off. Always feels good to smash the garlic clove. I'm just going to give it a few slices so that we make sure we break it down easily. All right, we've got our garlic in. We'll do the juice of 1 lime. So for this lime, just to release the juices, I'm going to give it a few good rolls on the cutting board here. Really helps break down that skin, release the juices so you get a lot more juice out of your lime. Same would be true for lemon. All right, so we'll juice 1/2 first. Just do this straight into the food processor. All right. Do another 1/2 here. All right, now I'm going to give it just a quick whirl here and break down these, and then we'll add the rest of our ingredients. All right, looking good. I've got a spatula here, and I'll just kind of push down the sides here. I'm using a little food processor today. I love these. They're easier to clean. You can actually fit a good amount of ingredients in here. And they're also really safe for kids to use. They have built-in safety features, sometimes good for adults too. Okay, so let's go ahead and add in the olive oil. For the olive oil, I have about 1/4 cup. I'm gonna add in, I have 1/4 cup of water here in this dish here, but I'm just gonna start by adding about 1/2 of it, and then we'll just add more if we need to. All right, the cilantro, this was 1 large bunch of cilantro, and I just trimmed off the ends. You don't have to be too particular about picking every little leaf off of the cilantro stems. You can use part of the stems, and that's just fine. So we're going to add our cilantro, and we might have to do this in a few tries here since we're using a smaller food processor. So we'll start with maybe about 1/2, and then we'll add the other 1/2 once we break this down a little bit. And I'm also going to add a pinch or two of salt. Right. All right, so let's give this another whirl. That little piece in there. Okay, it's looking good. The cilantro pesto too is super versatile. You could use it as a dip. It could be like a fun dip for raw veggies, or you could use pita chips or bake some tortilla chips. Good way to add flavor to tofu or chicken or fish. I might even put it on a taco with beans and rice. You've got all the flavors there. All right, so we have the rest of the cilantro in. So let's give this another whirl. Let's take a quick peek. I'm gonna push down the sides one more time. And then we'll process it once more and we'll be ready to go. And we can add it to our spaghetti squash. All right, looking good. I actually like to keep my pestos a little more rustic, but you could process for as little or as long as you like. That's completely up to you, whatever your preference is. But I like a little more texture in my meals, so I choose to go that route. All right, let's take out the blade here. It smells so good and fragrant. I love the smell of the lime and the cilantro and the garlic together. All right, so here's our finished product. And all we're going to do now is mix in the cilantro pesto with the spaghetti squash. And we can use a whole batch here. We'll give it a good mix. Don't want to leave anything behind. Okay. Looks good. And then we'll just give this a good stir until it's all nice and combined. Now this could be served just as it is. It would make a great side dish, or you could add your favorite protein and slice that and serve that on top. It could be a main dish. I think it would also taste great with roasted vegetables, or even mixing in some fresh vegetables like cherry tomatoes. Lots of different things would taste good. All right. So again, this is really a fun dish to make with kids. They have a really good time making the pesto and the spaghetti squash, and most kids, no matter what their age, would have an easy time. All right, so that's pretty well mixed. Here we go. This is what it looks like. Just kind of looks like you've got noodles in there mixed with pesto, but we're packing in a lot of veggies and a lot of nutrition. So I really hope that you give this a try at home. And just as a reminder, this recipe can also be found on eatfresh.org. So if you need it for future reference, you can find it there. And thank you, and I look forward to seeing you for another episode soon.